And now I'll do the introductions here. So this is the International Writers Inspiring Change Author Shout Out Podcast. And I'm Riala Plain. I think we've met indirectly because I've reviewed quite a number of your books and here at iWIC. And we're speaking with Jacqui Letran. Did you say it, Letran?
Yes, Letran.
Okay, great. What nationality? What's the background on that? Are you?
I'm actually Vietnamese. My mother's maiden name is Lee, and my stepdad is Tran. So when they got together, they combined it for Letran.
Well, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay. All right. So yeah, we're speaking with Jacqui Letran from are you in Florida or Texas? We're
I am in Texas right now.
okay. Because I noticed on your website on Amazon it says you live in, I think, in Dunedin, Florida or something.
I guess I haven't updated it yet.
It's an old.
Uh, yeah, it's been a few years since I've been in Dunedin, Florida.
Okay. All right. Well, great. It's great to have you on the podcast. As I said, we've reviewed quite a number of your books. They're great. We always like them, and you're prolific author, obviously, as shown by the number of
My
books
baby.
behind you. It's it's quite something. It's quite impressive. How long have you been writing for now?
I think I published my first book, I want to say 2012 or 2013. So it's been a while.
Well, in 12 years, 12, 13 years, you've put out quite a few books. Plus, they're translated in other languages too, right?
Yes, and my latest translation is coming out pretty soon, hopefully in the next few months, and that's in Latvian.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll start off. The podcast goes for about 30 minutes roughly. So we have a number of questions we're going to ask you. It's not highly structured, so we can digress. But
Ask away.
yeah, yeah. Well, tell us about you. Who are you? And yeah, what you do.
So I am one of those unintentional authors. If you ever heard that, I never wanted to be an author. And for the first few years, first bunches of years, I didn't see myself as an author. I started my career as a nurse practitioner, and with the nurse practitioner, I did a lot of mental health care, prescribing medications, adjusting medications, seeing patients year in, year out with the exact same problem, maybe slightly improved, maybe slightly worsened,
Mm.
but it's still there. And so I got really frustrated with the medical system, started looking for other alternatives to help my patients,
What
and
what was that
discover
frustration based on? Just curious.
it's just the fact that I'm seeing the same patients over and over again and keep on prescribing medication and, adding a second, maybe a third medication, and they're
Mm.
still, saddled with the problem.
Yeah,
The edge might be taken off, but they're still depressed. They're still anxious.
yeah.
Their lives are not to the level that it could be.
Right, right.
And so from that frustration, I started my research and found a slew of holistic options I've never heard about. And in fact, when I first read about some of them, I'm like, yeah, right. There's no way, all of these hypnosis and positive mindset change could really create that kind of difference. But I was curious. So I kept looking into it and I kept looking into it. And I went to one training after the other just to find this can't work. But the more I went to these training, the more I realized it can and does work.
Hmm.
And it works so much better than any pill can ever hope to work in terms of helping people like regain themselves, regain their mental state, and actually be in control of themselves versus becoming dependent on a pill or a professional long term. And so from that, I started my practice. I left medicine completely, and started my holistic healing practice. And in every single first session, when I meet a client, I would teach them about their mind because I do not want anyone to become dependent on me. I want to give them the tools so that once we work on, you know, um, unpacking whatever they've been carrying and
Yeah.
get them to a good place of mental health that they themselves can continue their journey. And so with
Which is
every single
what
new,
should happen actually, even in the medical field.
yeah,
But
yes. You one would think, right?
Yes, exactly.
Um, yeah, and so with every new client, I teach them the same thing. And then I start hearing people asking me, for notes. And I'm like, I love what you said. I want to remember it. I want to share with my partner, with my spouse, with my children. Um, can you write it down? And when you know something so well, and when you talk, it's unconscious. So
Hmm.
I'm like, I just taught you for an hour. I have no clue what I said. I mean, I know deep down, but like for me to sit down and start writing it, it's a lot of work. And so I'm like, no, we'll keep on working over it. You can ask me questions and whatever. But I kept getting the same request over and over and over again. And so finally I gave in. I'm like, fine, I'm going to sit down and write up something quick. I'm just going to pretend I'm talking to a client and just start teaching. And I did that and it kept going and going and going.
It just
And next,
evolved from there.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's just been an amazing journey since.
But that evolution, it sounds to me like was based on the fact that people were actually demanding that there was something workable about what you were doing with them, so they wanted to have more of it.
Yes. I mean, like, a lot of my clients, they've been to other people, they've read other books or whatever. And I'm not saying my method is the method or the best method, but the way I explain it to them, the way I break things down, because one of the things I love doing is simplifying everything. You read my books, you
Yeah,
review my books. You know how simple I write,
yeah.
and that is part of the
It's almost
draw.
sounds like
Is
it's almost like dialogue the way you write it, like you're talking to me and we're sitting in a room having a talk. That's how when I read your books, I always get that feeling.
That was my goal. My goal was to really make it incredibly easy to understand, incredibly easy to implement. Because you can read all the books in the world, but if you don't understand it, if you can't implement it, what good is it? So I started writing these books because, yes, there was a lot of requests because they were seeing changes in themselves as they're working with me. And they're hearing nuggets, maybe for the 10th time, but in the first time in a way that they can understand,
Hmm.
because none of the stuff I teach is new. I didn't come up with anything new and brilliant. It's just the way that I disseminate that information, the way that I make it usable,
Yeah,
is
exactly.
what's really
Because
helpful.
you package it up in such a way that it's presented in a different perspective. And also, are a lot of your clients teens or young adults? Or
A
is that
lot of my clients are actually adults.
okay?
Um, uh, I would say probably 40 and above is my average clientele. Teen is my passion, but it's harder to get a teen in a seat because there's two things, right? There are teens that actually reach out to me after reading my books and say, please call my parents. I really want to work with you. I need your help.
Hmm.
And that's, of course, something I can't do. And then, of course, there are parents that call me and says, fix my teens. And there's really nothing to fix because the teens aren't broken,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yeah,
There's
of course.
definitely learned behavior, learned beliefs, and there's unlearning to do. And oftentimes when a parent called me, I would say, yeah, okay, I would definitely be happy to work with your child. We need to work with you also. And unfortunately, a lot of the parents are like, no, 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 I'm fine. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Fix my kid, you know? And what they don't understand is if I help this child create new belief systems and new way of thinking, new way of being, and the household haven't changed, is not supporting the
Hmm.
change won't last.
Yeah. Yeah. We've seen that too in other, in when you're dealing with kids who go into a broken home or in a broken home and then you try to fix them, but you never fix the parents. And so the problem just persists.
Yeah, the environment has to support the change.
Precisely, precisely. Okay, well, that's really good. Okay, let me see. But now you mentioned that most of your or a lot of your clients are 40-ish and above. Um, but the books address different demographics.
I started writing for teen girls because that is my huge passion. And it became a huge passion of mine because I was that teen girl. I
Hmm.
wrote for me, basically, right? I was a troubled kid. I was a runaway. I was a high school dropout. I was a teenage mom. I mean, check, 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 right? And I didn't know where to go for help. There just wasn't the resources that connected to me on that level.
Yeah.
And so even though my my patients were adults. I wrote for teens, knowing that all of us adults have been teens in the past, and still can relate. You know, the example, our teens example, but we all went through that. And so when I started writing the books, it was for teen girls specifically. And as time went by, more and more adults are asking, well, I want my own version. I know I read your teen book, it's great, it's helpful, but I want my own version. And I heard that so much. So there is now an adult version. There's also a teen boys version
So
because, you
that,
know, these pink covers are great, but not a lot of boys
yeah, it
are
does
into. And
communicate. But I see, I've
yeah,
noticed that I read one of the adult versions, and the basics are the same basics that are that you cover in the books for girls and teens. But again, the
right.
dialogue is different. Now you're talking to an adult, and the perspective is different. And I think that's one of the great powers of your books is they speak uh, to the reader. It's not just generic, you know. So.
Thank you.
I
I
find it
worked hard
hard
on that.
not to relate to it. I mean, I don't consider myself a troubled person, but it does catalyze stuff in your head. You start to think about, well, maybe I could be better at this, or maybe I should improve this, or my perspective, or my mental outlook on life. And I agree with you completely. The positivity that you project in these books is really tremendous. I mean, it's tremendous.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know, I want to make sure that listeners know that these books are not for troubled people only, right? We all can learn to improve ourselves. And the most basic thing is, how does the mind work? How does our thinking create our reality? And that is not something that is widely taught in school.
No,
So most of us adults have not heard these things, and they're simple, simple, simple things that once you understand and practice, the change that will occur is tremendous. So, you know, even if you have a really amazing life and your career is fantastic, you have a great marriage and your children's are like amazing, amazing in every way. However, life happens and you still go through those stressful events,
that's right.
right? Understanding how your mind works can alleviate those stress, can give you the opportunity to pause and look at your situation more holistically and decide what you want to do and how to proceed in a way that maximize your results rather than being reactive. So the power of understanding the mind is there no matter where you are.
No, precisely. And I noticed that, well, each time when you delve into the mind aspect of it, which I agree with you, is not explained in school. And generally speaking, one would think that we should be given a manual as we're going through school that says this is how your mind works. You know, there's sort of a subconscious part that bangs around on you, and then there's sort of the conscious part. But when you're explaining this to people, like in a one-to-one, the difference between the subconscious and conscious effects of the mind, how do you get that across to them?
Pen and paper. I like drawing. I
Okay.
am terrible at it, but really just, you know, making the two columns and writing down exactly what each part does and explaining it as I'm doing this really help people to see it. And then, of course, giving examples, right? So the conscious part of the mind is your logical mind. It's the part of your mind that, you know, decide on what to do and it's where your drives are, or not your drive, your wants are,
Right.
right? So for example, you might really want that job promotion. That's a conscious thing. You know what step to take to apply for that thing. Those are all conscious. But the subconscious is that unknowing part of yourself, the program that's been driven into you since you were a child. And that program is the one that says, don't do it. You're going to
Yeah,
fail,
you're going to
right?
fail.
It's
Yeah.
all the fear of the past, all the failure of the past is like stored in the subconscious mind and is more of a knee-jerk reaction. And so even though you really want something, a lot of us self-sabotage because the want doesn't match the belief that we hold long term.
I love that word, self-sabotage, because that's exactly true. You know, we have dreams, and then you think of something, oh, I'd love to do this. And then the next thing from nowhere comes this machine gun of, no, no, be careful, or you might fail, or walk the middle of the road. That's the safe road.
Exactly. All the but, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of us, we say things like, I'm a great starter, but not a great finisher. And that is your subconscious mind at work.
Hmm.
I draw out this diagram in my one-on-one sessions, and it shows like this column post and another post here. And to the left of this post is where you are, and to the right of this post is your goal. And anything in between those two posts is considered dangerous to your subconscious mind.
Mm,
Not your conscious logical mind, but to your subconscious knee jerk reaction mind.
right.
And so when you're on this side of the goalpost and you're in your comfort zone, and you're like, yeah, I want to run that marathon. I'm going to, raise so much money for the benefit I believe in, and it's going to be amazing. But the moment you start practicing and you cross over to that post, your subconscious mind is freaking out. You are in danger zone, and the subconscious mind thinks you will get hurt. So it's going to do everything it can to push you back into your normal, right? So that's where the fear comes up, the doubts, and all the remembering of past failures. It floods you. And then, of course, what do? We freeze and we go back. And
So
every time
what do
we
you
freeze and we
find
go,
in explaining this to people? Do you find that once they understand the concept, how this works, how the mind works, do their fears sort of abate? Do they start to get more self-esteem, more self-confidence about themselves? Is it visible?
it will become visible with practice,
Yeah.
because knowing is one thing. If you don't apply it, there's nothing that happens, right? But understanding this, the first thing they'll do is at least have awareness. So when something is happening, they're like, oh, that's what Jacqui and I talked about. So at least they are understanding the process.
Mm,
Now, what do you do when you understand, when you become aware? You have to take actions. You have to create new habits, right? I mean, all your negative things, those are just habits. Those are just
right.
negative habits that didn't give you the results you want. So now that you are aware that these habits are in play, you can decide to implement positive habits that's going to move you towards the other side of the goalpost.
Which is the practical steps that you have in most of your chapters. So they practice each one of the like a little regimen.
Yes, and it's really all mindset, right?
Mm,
Um, so a lot of people think, they have to go out and do the thing. And then it freaks them out. And of course, they stay in that inactivity place again. The thing about the subconscious mind that is so cool in the way that it helps us achieve our goals, is that the subconscious mind have no clue when something is happening in real life versus in your mind.
yeah.
If you are thinking it, feeling it, doing it, it's on, right? And so if you have a goal to run a marathon, if you imagine in your mind, you don't even have to get out there and start running. You imagine in your mind, you picture yourself doing the marathon,
Yeah.
doing it well, having a great time, loving every moment, or even not loving every moment, but succeeding and feeling really good about it. The subconscious mind will go, oh, we just ran that marathon and we felt good. Now you practice visualizing it, and not just think about it, bring in all the emotions you can. Bring in all your senses. See it, hear it, touch it, taste it, feel it. Be there in your mind, right? Hear the crowd cheering, feel the sweat coming down your face. I mean, bring it all in. And so by the 15th time you visualize this in your mind, your subconscious mind's like, we've done it 15 times, piece of cake.
Kind of
So
like
when
what
it's actual,
when the Olympiads do this, right? They train themselves to
yes,
think positively all the time about what they want to accomplish.
right. So not just think positively about what they want, is see themselves succeed,
Mm,
right? A want isn't a powerful word, and I teach that to my clients. Want still puts you into that child thing. Mommy, me, I really want this, mom. And so the
mm.
subconscious mind's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But if you are committed to it, if you are dedicated to your goal, then all of a sudden the subconscious mind is like, we're doing this. So not
So
just
it's more
visualizing.
important to envision it actually, so it seems real in your mind as opposed to just thinking I want it.
Yes, yes, live it like it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, be the best actor, actresses in the history and make a movie of you achieving the goal you want to achieve. And if you watch a movie and the actors on screen and like, oh yeah, I want to win this marathon. It's really important to me. You're gonna throw Rotten Tomatoes at that actor because it's not fun. There's no energy, right?
Exactly.
So when you visualize, you have to really visualize, okay, I am at the start line and I feel really strong, and I can breathe the fresh air, and the breeze is there is perfect, and I'm crossing the finish line. and my children are cheering for me. Everybody is so proud of me. I'm so proud of me. I mean, that's a little bit more exciting, right?
Yeah, that's
So
it.
bring it
But
in, make it exciting.
yeah, that totally makes sense. Another question here for you. Sort of comparing, you've been in this in business of consulting for about what, 12, 13 years, at least a decade or so,
15.
15. If you compare the earlier period of your career in this area and now, would you say that teens and young adults are experiencing uh, less self-confidence, less self-esteem today than they were, let's say, back when you first started? I
I
mean,
would definitely
culturally
say so.
speaking, I'm just wondering if this is a factor.
I definitely would say yes. And, adults are suffering,
Hmm.
right? I mean, especially this last more recently, there's been so much changes. Ever since COVID happened, the world changed tremendously, and there was so much more fear and so much more a sense of not feeling safe. And not feeling safe is one of the big beliefs that causes all of our problems.
Hmm.
So adults are feeling it, and of course, if adults are feeling it, they are going to transfer that energy into the children,
Yeah.
right? And of course, we all talk about social media. I mean, like nothing happens without it being on social media anymore. So if you make a
Right.
mistake and it's on social media, it lives forever. And thousands of people saw it, or hundreds of thousands of people saw it, depending on what the oopsie is. Of course, it's going to cause more stress. Teens and adults. We are expected to be perfect all the time.
Do you think that social
Or
media
we,
has actually contributed to that in terms of keeping people a
I
little
think
bit more off balance or on the edge?
I think so. I think so because, if you go onto social media, the majority of us will see negative things, right? Because those are the one that's going to get interaction.
Hmm.
And social media platform love interactions. So the one that's getting interaction, they're getting pushed out further and further. And so when you go on social media, all you see are negativities. And people who are, beautiful and have these amazing life is all curated, right? They took 200 pictures to get that one picture and they edit the heck out of that one picture. And now they post that thing on social media like I just woke up like this. And
Exactly.
although everybody knows because we do similar things, we still go, oh my gosh, their life is amazing, right? So we see the best of their best, and we compare that to the worst of our worst. Of
Oh, that's
course, we're going to be
interesting.
more stressed.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good point. Good answer. Um, all right. Well, here's a question for you. How do you in your practice, in your consulting, do you integrate your books into that, or do you keep those two fields completely separate?
I teach what is in my books naturally.
Of course.
So that's how the integration is. But do I say, go get my book and do the workbook? No.
Hmm.
I do let them know they have those options. And oftentimes, if I'm seeing an adult that have a child, they'll get the children's or the teens book as a way to start the conversation with their kids. So that's been helpful that way, but it's not something that I use as a physical tool. It's more what I share in the sessions.
Okay, good. You know, a number of the authors that we've interviewed on the podcast, we sort of segue into this subject, but I'm going to segue anyhow with you because you interact with people. Today's education system, I mean, one of our goals at IWIC here at our platform is to promote literacy and reading for obvious reasons because uh, it's the future. I mean, if people can't read and write, then we're going to have tyranny in the world, oligarchies, and all the stuff that we see sort of the head starting to loom. But how do you see that? How does education at all, or lack of, or failing education play a role in the problems that you see in dealing with people, particularly, I would say, millennials and the newer generation?
Mhm. I think education is so incredibly important. And that was drilled into me by my mother when I was a kid. And I hated her for that because all she wanted us to do was study. I mean, all day long, right?
Mhm.
Education is the one thing that no one can take away from you. Your knowledge, no one can take away from you. I
Mm.
mean, we saw again with COVID that our freedom can change instantly. And we're still seeing changes in the world on a daily basis now. But the education they can't take, your mindset they can't take, right? So education for me is not just formal going to school and doing the work. Unfortunately, a lot of kids go to school, do the work, and don't learn anything because rote learning is useless. I mean, it's not useless. I'm sorry, I take that back. It's not as helpful
Right.
as if you learn how to think critically.
Right. And
And
it'll
again,
teach them how to think, but not what to think.
exactly, right? If all you know is what they taught, like if you're not taught how to think, then you're not going to be able to solve your problems. You're going to be dependent on the media, on the masses for answers that are probably not the right answers for you. And that goes back to my books, why it's so important to me to help people understand how their mind works. Because I could write a book that says, wake up at 8 o'clock, do this thing. At 9 o'clock, do this thing, step by step, right? To have a good day without explanation.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then they do those steps and it doesn't work. They have no idea how to problem solve. But if they know, okay, well, that didn't work because this other thing that I learned about, let me try this other thing, right? So you have to be able to think critically, and that I think is the keystone of education.
Good. Good answer. If you were going to tell authors, okay, you're an experienced and successful author now. Obviously, you have been for years. So, if you're going to tell authors that were coming into the field, novices, what kind of advice would you give them?
Ooh, how long do we have?
It's
uh,
okay.
uh, First is mindset. First and foremost in anything and everything is really mindset, right? A lot of author they go into the field either thinking like I know this thing, I have this thing I want to share, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, but then that imposter syndrome. Who am I to share this? Who will want to do this, right?
What do you
So the
mean by the
first thing you
imposter syndrome? Explain that to me.
well, a lot of my clients and a lot of people that are in my world as clients or on social media have imposter syndrome is they want to do this thing that be an author for example. The imposter syndrome is like, but why, who would want to listen to me? I'm a nobody. What are my experiences? What are my qualifications? I do not qualify to write this book. I don't have what it takes, right? And
Like the
so people go
subconscious,
into
that phantom subconscious coming into play again.
exactly, it's the same self-doubt as, you wanted to be an author, you on this side, you wrote your book and you're publishing it, you're on this side, now you're in danger. So the subconscious mind will push you back. And that would be with all the doubts, which
Mm,
is what the imposter syndrome is just doubt coming up like full force constantly that pushes people back. And oftentimes it pushes people back before they even get a chance to publish their book or even to finish writing their book. Because as they're writing their book, all of those, but who will want to read my book? I have nothing important to say. Those doubts creeps in and then they stop or they question themselves and they rewrite the same paragraph, for 3 months. I was guilty of that. I'm going to confess.
Well, I've gone back
Okay.
and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, huh?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay. So when I first sat down to write my notes for my clients, I got my computer out, got my Word document blank, and I start typing and I erased and I start typing and I erased. And I don't know how long I did that. And I might have a full paragraph and I erased, because it wasn't what I wanted to write. And the part of the problem, and this is part of the advice, is I was trying to be other authors.
Right.
So I was trying to speak in a way that wasn't authentic to me. Um, and I don't know what that voice is. So I'm trying to make this voice, and I am not happy with a voice because that voice is not mine. And so after doing that for I don't know how long, I got a notebook out and I wrote in the notebook. I hand wrote and I said, I'm not deleting. anything. I'm writing. And if you know your stuff, when you write, and this is why journaling is so incredibly important, when you write and you free write, your stuff comes out, your voice come out.
Yeah.
And so I have this notebook still. Like I'm looking at my room, see if I have it in my office. I don't have it like it's usually right here, but I'm moving, so it's packed somewhere. Um, but this, you know, chicken scratch notebook with ideas that are some are fantastic as is, some are just like gotta reorganize or add to it. But the bulk of my book was there in handwriting form. And then I typed it up and then I start the editing process. And that was so much easier than starting from scratch trying to be
Right.
somebody else.
So it'd be safe to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but writing what you want to read, what you would want to yourself read, is more important than writing what you think the readers would be interested in, or the publishers, or is that a
Oh,
safe thing, or is
no,
that not?
I'm gonna, okay. For me, that was what's important to me. And for a lot of authors out there, that is what's important to them. Now, there's a lot of authors that write to market. They do the research and they find out what reader wants to read and
Hmm.
they write to that. And they make an insane amount of money if they're really good. So it depends on what type
But
of a writer you are, what your goals are. My goals when I started writing wasn't to become, a famous author and make a ton of money. My goal was to how do I make this information as accessible as possible to as many people as I can? And
yeah,
so my goal was different. So it really depends on you and
you
what it
have to
is that you're
basically
trying to
define what
accomplish.
your goal is, and then you can follow that road.
Yes.
Whether you're, yeah, I understand. Okay, that makes total sense. Well, any new books coming up in the offing? Anything new coming out soon? Or?
Yeah. So we talked about the teen books that are in for teen girls, teen boys, and the adult version of the best-selling book. Um, I have a 3-year-old granddaughter, and I just want the best for her, right? And one other thing, I'm like, it'll be so much fun for her to have books about herself that actually teach a lesson. And I had no idea how to disseminate this stuff here into a kid's book. I just knew I wanted to do that. And then 2 years ago now, I went to visit my granddaughter, and she gave me the worst sinus infection I've ever had. And I'm in bed, and I'm like, oh my God, this is miserable. I hate this, blah, blah, blah. All these negative, poor, pity me thinking. And then I start laughing at myself because I'm like, I know better than this. I teach mindset, and whatever you pay attention to, you create. So I sat up and I started thanking my nose for everything that it's done for me. Oh, come on, if we don't have our noses, there's no us, right? And so I'm like, thank you, nose. You have always been there for me, taking in fresh air. I can smell those yummy cookies. And I did all of this gratitude towards my nose and telling my nose how much I love it and how much I'm going to take care of it. And I felt better instantly.
Oh, that's
Did
interesting.
my sinus infection go away?
No.
I still had all the congestion. I still had all the sinus pain, but I was no longer suffering. And that's what
Wow.
I teach my clients, right? It's like pain is life, suffering is optional. And so in that instant, I'm like, those are my kids' books.
So
Those are,
that was the what was the title of that book, On the Nose?
the first one is Have you ever thanked your nose?
Right. And then the other, you
And I
did one about your eyes as well, right?
the five senses because
The
I wanted to
process.
teach. I mean, because those are things that we take for granted, but that is how we experience life.
Right.
And so there's a have you ever thanked your eyes, your nose, your ears, your skin, and your tongue? And
Excuse
they
me
all
one
featuring
second
my
here. One
yes.
second.
You're
You know,
back.
cats. Once cats get going,
Oh, I have six, so I know. But yeah, I mean it's super cute. It features my granddaughter. I'm gonna get one of my books. My granddaughter, my cat, and my dog. Oh, I have the fake background, so I can't
yeah,
show you.
that's okay.
But
No, but I thought I did read one or two of those books. I thought this is really cool. This is so simple. Again, though, this goes back to a point that I've brought up in various discussions, is that and also I realize as an author, when you go to school, nobody gives you a manual about your body. Or
Not quite like this, right? I mean, like we learn it in health and whatever,
yeah,
but the goal of my book, okay, so taking a step back really quick, the reason I focus on gratitude is because with all the sessions I've done, the thousands of sessions I've done, I discover that the number one thing that's going to fast track your healing is gratitude.
right.
Because even in the worst situation, there is a silver lining. There is something still to be grateful for. There is a lesson that's going to propel us. And we teach little kids to say thank you. But what is that? Those are two words that don't really have a meaning to the kids, right? And so the Have You Ever Thanked Your One of the Senses series called the Growing Gratitude for Children series really teach kids about why they should be grateful for. And it's not for big trips to Disneyland or big present, but it's for the everyday little things, the things that our nose, our ears, our eyes, our skin, our tongue does for us that none of us adults really think about or
We take
think,
for granted. I mean, it's
take for granted,
yeah.
right? And it's the thing that we need the most to experience life.
Mm.
And so it's a rhymey, cute little adventure. Everything about the book is positive because, a lot of the kids' book have some kind of negative situation first, and then the hero resolved that. I didn't want that. I wanted to really just focus on life is amazing even when things are not going well. So in the Nose book, for example, it starts well, all the books actually. It starts out with Bean Bean, my granddaughter, thanking that particular part of her body for all the thing it does. So that part teaches kids that part of their body do for them. And then the second part, in the book is now that part is sick. So the nose is congested, the skin might have a rash, the eye might have, conjunctivitis with goo coming down. So now the that part isn't feeling good. What happens? So it kind of teaches the kids that.
Mm.
And then the third part is Bean making that promise to taking care of her body parts and feeling better and celebrating that. And so the book is incredibly simple if you just read the story. But if you understand the message behind it, you just pause and look a little bit deeper. It's so many things all wrapped in one. Teaching the kids how the body works, normalizing that illnesses happen and that even in illnesses, they still are in choice. They can still choose how to react and they still can be in gratitude and how much self-love and self-care is the key to their happiness and
Well, I
joy.
think that's an important message because I mean, kids, I mean, when you're a kid, that's the impressionable years. What message are you getting from the environment, from life, from parents, whatever? And I agree with you when they go through the book. Well, it isn't just a fairy tale, it isn't just about giants and stuff like that. It's about them. It's about their body and understanding it. And what's interesting is that you've got these kids' books, and that's kind of a kickstart at a young age. And then you're kind of building a kind of a bridge here because then as they walk up the next step, they can now start to understand the mind and how to think and deal with the things that are going to happen in life. But again, it goes back to this point of we still don't have a manual that's handed to us, and says this is how your body works, this is how the mind works. I mean, you have to kind of discover these things on your own, and your books actually help to fill that void. So,
That was my goal. Thank you.
yeah, you did a great job. Well, those were the key questions I had for you. Oh, but I asked you, was there another book coming down the line, another children's book, or is that?
So I wrote five kids books total, and I
Yeah.
released only two so far on Amazon, and the rest are on my website. I took a pause because I'm doing this huge move and I want to reorganize some of my business. And so I will be releasing the rest of the books on Amazon sometime this year, but they are all available on my website right now.
Okay, great. Great. Well, okay, we wish you a lot of luck with your move, wherever you're moving to. And I want to thank you a lot for being on the podcast. We love your stuff. And of course,
Well, thank you so much for having me.
yeah, we look forward to reading more of the books. So have a great day, Jacqui. Oh, by the way,
All
the,
right.
the podcast, this interview will be posted on the page, the podcast page, and we'll also promote it to our thousands of viewers, and you can certainly refer people to it so they can see the interview.
Definitely.
All right, great. Thanks for
All
being
right. Well,
with
thank
us.
you again. Have a good one.
You too. Bye now.
Bye bye.